I'm very excited to do this exercise about NJRX SignalStore and Angular application. We'll utilize some of the more modern features that Angular 17 and more newer versions provide, but also look at what NJRX SignalStore can do for you. So without further ado, let's look into the application. What we have here is basically like a contact app. So what we want is having a list of all the contacts, being able to add contacts, edit contacts, but also search for certain contacts. Those are the main points of this application. So let's have a look at the application, what's already, or at the code, and look what's already there. So what we have here is a sample Angular application. We already have a basic store setup in NGRX Signal, or in basic SignalStore setup, where we provide the context store in root and also have some dummy data that you saw in the application. I do want this exercise more about SignalStore and how to integrate it. So I already provided the methods to fetch the data, edit, create context, all those kind of things. We have the interface type, nothing special here. We have a component for the search. The contact page is the entire page with all the list of contacts. Then we have contact details. That's the detail page for one particular contact where you can also then edit the contact. We have a contact card, which is the little thing you rendered in the list. And then we have add contact page, which is for adding or creating a new contact. Okay, so let's look at the first exercise. And the first exercise, we have fetch all contacts. So we want to replace the dummy data with actual data. So let's start there. Okay. And I mentioned that we already have the basic structure. So what we want is to say, okay, we want a method that loads all our data. We want, as our signal store, we use that as a public API to where to define where we're getting the data from. So we have the with methods that is providing by NJRX SignalStore. And this takes a bunch of stuff, primarily the state as argument, but also we can return an object here with all the methods that we want to expose. And in our case, we want to have a load contacts method. And the special thing here is that we're using RxJS for some of the operations, so we can use the expose Rx method. The other thing that we want, because we're using our contact data service a lot, we can inject this here. So let's do this. Data service is equal to inject contact data service. Okay. So within our Rx method, what we want to do is we want to call the get contacts method. Okay. So what we do is every time when this is called, we want context to be loaded. So we need some of those higher order operators like switch map, merge map, exhaust map. I don't care necessarily about the most recent value in this, so exhaust map is totally sufficient. And in here we return this, sorry, not this, but data service dot get contacts. In this, we already have some basic error handling, so we're good from this. The other thing we then need to do is update our store with that. So what we want to do is do a tab. And in here we get contacts. And we do state. Patch store was patch state. Patch state was the method we passed this is actually a store. We pass the store and the contacts. And we should also import tab. The other thing we have to do is convert the contacts array that we receive here in the contacts array that we receive here. We need to convert this into the map structure that we have from the entities. So NJRX SignalStore provide the add entities method for that. And the other thing that I forgot is we want to wrap this in a pipe because it's a set of operators, RxJS operators. And that should do the trick. Now we have contacts array here and we're good to go. The other thing now we need to do is, instead of initially patching our store with dummy data, we want initially to load the data. So in here, we can now just do store.load contacts. And if I didn't make a mistake, which is contacts expected one argument. This is void. There we go. So let's go to the application. And now we see a bunch of data here with a bunch of names and stuff happening. So that looks pretty good. Let's go to the next part. So that was already exercise number 1. Good job, us. Let's do exercise number 2. For exercise number 2, what we want to do is update an existing contact. So we want to go in the contact detail page and update the contact. So what that means is we want to go in here. We have this edit form. We notice now that this has some dummy data, so we want to change this with the actual name, but then also update this appropriately. So let's look into that. So in our detail page, we now want to take the ID from the contact as an input argument. So let's start there. We can mark this as protected. ID is equal to input dot required of type string. Okay, that looks good. Let's import input as well. And the new router, or fairly recently, there's the provide router. And we have the with input, what's it called again? With component input binding, yes. So this way, automatically route params are marked or used as input, basically, as input argument. Okay, we also need our service. So our contact store is equal to inject. I like to use the inject function, but you can also use constructor injection. Doesn't matter for NJRX SignalStore. And now our contact is basically part of that contact store, right? So what we can do is we basically want to use this ID and the contact store to get that right contact. So what we can do here now is use computed, which makes this a lot more convenient to use in my perspective. Sorry. Contact store dot entities at the place of this dot ID, but with parentheses. And entity is a signal, so of this dot ID. Element has an any type index expression is not. Was it entities map? Yeah, there we go. My bad. Okay, and now contact is a signal of contact, which is good. Okay. So if we now go in our application, we should at least see, if we go to edit, no, that didn't work. Let's see why it didn't work. It should work. Let's do some debugging real quick. Const e is equal to, let's do contact. Contact contact.log and return contact. Okay, maybe it's not contacts. This dot contact store entity map. This is a contact. And it wasn't marked as a signal. Probably. Yes. So I want to change this. I can do this here real quick because contact is now a signal. Interesting that Angular didn't say you have an error there, but cannot read properties of undefined reading name. Okay. Why is it originally undefined? Oh, okay, because I jumped in the application directly. But yes, okay. Okay, that makes sense. We could implement this null safe in a way by wrapping in. Yeah, let's do this real quick. So what we want to do, just as a safety measure, have an add if contact as contact. Yeah, I prefer this. Okay. I had this around the whole form. Yep. And now I can also remove those again. Sweet. Okay. And now this is null safe and it works. Okay. So we have the contact now. The other thing we need to do is on submit, change the record. So we want to do on our form, implement a submit. We have a submit button down here. So we can just go in and do on submit. We want to call contact changed. We go in here, public contact changed. I actually copy pasted that so I can just go. Okay. In here, we now want to take the data from the form so we can assign this to a template variable. But we also update the contact. So we could just go ahead and provide contact here as an argument. I think I prefer that. This should now return the updated contact if I'm not mistaken. So just, okay, something fancy. Jesus, not even close, something else. And this has, yeah, the updated contact in it. So we're good to go. What we need to do though is in our contact store now, provide a method to change a contact. So let's create a new method, update contact. And again, it's an RX method because we already have an update contact down here where we take the new contact and update it based on its ID. So we take the contact as an argument. We type this together. So in here, we take the contact, exhaust map. We could also use concat map. Yeah, let's use concat map. And in here, we want to return data service dot update contact with the contact. And if this is successful, then we basically want to do update our state as well, just with the exception that now our contact, we don't have an array anymore. So we just wanna, did I mess up the, yeah, I did mess up the parentheses. Okay. Add entity and with contact. Okay. Why is it not formatting properly? It's still bothering me. I don't have a prettier config. Okay. Well, that makes sense then. Okay, we will cut this out. Yes, so. Okay. Let's look whether this worked. Refresh. We change the name to someone super important. We submit. Okay, this looks like something happened. We don't navigate back yet, but we can implement this. So let's go to contacts. And that record didn't update. Why didn't the record update? Someone very important in the network tab. We're not calling the method yet. That makes sense. That is very smart of me. Contact detail component. In here, we want to do this dot contact store dot update contact with the contact. And then also would be nice to navigate. Actually, let me create field equal to inject router. Navigate, we want to go back. Oh, it's right. Okay. So let's try this again. Someone important. Yeah, there we go. So that was exercise number 2. Well done. And exercise number 3 would now be create a new contact. Okay. So for that, we already have the add contact where we have the placeholder here. And once we submit, I create a new contact. I did extract the whole part about like creating an image or like uploading an image and stuff to make it a little bit easier. But our add contact page right now just has an empty contact as a placeholder. And in here, then we use a very similar pattern to our new contact. Oops. Okay. So let's start here. So what we need again is our contact service. So protected contact store equal to inject contact store. And on submit of the form, we want to perform an asynchronous operation to create this. So let's do submit and say create contact. Okay, this dot contact store. Let's call it create contact, and we want to, yeah, that looks pretty good. Okay. Create contact again, RX method. I know this is very surprising now. We're taking a contact again. And in here, then we are calling create contact. Again, because you might want to create multiple contacts, or you might have a nervous finger. So let's use exhaust map contact. And we are returning this dot. It's not this, not in the class context here. Data service dot create contact with the contact that we get added, and we basically copy this code again, and we are good to go with this. Add entity of type. So create contact returns a contact or undefined. Okay, we want to shield against the undefined part. It returns undefined in the case of an error. Okay, that makes sense. So if contact, then do this. And in the else case, we don't really need to do anything. So we're good. We are pretty good with that. Okay, let's go back here. We're creating contact with this contact, but we're taking a partial contact because we don't have the image. So let's change the method signature here. and take partial. Okay, create contact is a little bit more restrictive, so let's do this, but this should be sufficient. Yep. And now our add contact page should work once I change the type to this, which is anyway kind of better type. Okay. And then again, afterwards, we want to navigate to the base page. So let's do this real quick. Equal to inject router. Okay. Let's see if that already works. Let's say test, and test.com. And submit. And now we should have test.test.com. Good job. So that's pretty sweet and worked really well. So that was exercise number 3. Again, job well done. Let's have a look at the bonus exercise. Because for the bonus exercise, we now want to implement a search. And that could be a little bit tricky because what we want to do is we have our contact search. And this contact search, let's look at the... So basically what I would expect is if I put in test, I would just see the test user. That is what I would like to see. So what we want to start with is a way to set the state or the search state in here. Right now we just have contacts, because what we can then do is aggregate or combine those two states of the context and the search and provide an aggregated list or a derived state. So let's use with state and have something like search, and that is an empty string. The other thing we need for type inference is specify the type of our state. So what we have here is an object that has a search property and a string. And now our store has the search argument. The other thing we now want is on the search, if the button here, or if this form is submitted, we want to update the parameter. So let's do that real quick. Let's do submit again. Update search term. A very creative name, I know. And we don't have any value stored yet, so let's adjust that form real quick. Let's have an ng model here. I would probably usually rather put this more at the front, but that's fine. Ng model equal to search. We create this field, and that is an empty string. And ng model is not imported in this, so let's do that too. Okay. So now in update search term, we want to update our state. As of now, NJRX SignalStore exposes those state parts publicly. There is an OpenRFC for it. I like to encapsulate this in methods though, so let's do that real quick. So contact store is equal to inject contact store and import inject. And in here, we want to do something like contact store dot update search term with search. So this is now not an RX method. Sorry, this dot search. So we can still go in our contact store and use the with method to declare this, but now it's really just a function. So we get a search term here, term of type string. And so what I now want to do is I still want to patch the state of our store, but I just want to update the search property. So let's rename this to search so that this matches this name. And this is our method that we're now calling to update this. So in here, okay. The other thing we now need to do is, because we have the context page that as of now uses the context store entities. So what we want to do is instead derive the list based on the search term and the context. And we can do this really nicely with computed, which will generate a computed signal. So again, we have store. And we want to return our computed signal, which would be search contact list or something. And I think I need to use computed on that. Yes, so we use computed. Okay, we import computed. And now we want to say, okay, if we have a store.search, then we filter the list, else we just return basically whatever we have set here. Oh, just the entities. Okay, that's not too difficult. Return store.entities. But now we want to, in here, we want to do store.entities.filter. And I just implement the basic search. You could go a little crazy, but this is a contact. And we want to say, hey, if the contact dot name includes search store.search, then we return this and we return the filtered list if we have a return statement here. And now in our contact page, instead of entities, we would use search contact list. And other than that, we don't really need to change anything. So let's see if that behaves the way I would expect. So I'll look for TE, and that doesn't do a whole lot. If ng model is used within the form tag, either name attribute must be set. Okay. I forgot about that part. So let's give this thing a name real quick. Search. Okay. TE. Still didn't do a whole lot. Okay, let's debug this. We have a submit button, so this should be triggered. Console.log. Search this.search. Let's start there. TE. Okay, I'm not updating the value properly. What did I miss? I see it. It is the event binding here. So let's see if that does the trick. I put in TE and I now get pay. Yep, that looks good. Sweet. So we got a little bit of live debugging, but we managed to get through all the exercise. I think this highlights some of the strengths that I really like about NJRX SignalStore, with how composable it is, how easy it is to add features to it. And I can just recommend you checking it out. If you want to play with this and go through this, there is also in the GitHub repository that will be linked in the description below. There's also the solution branch that has all the solution. It might differ a little bit from what I did now in terms of like the names that I used, but fundamentally it's the same. So thank you very much for joining me today and watch this. Really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed it too. And yeah, thank you very much. Have a good one. Bye.